Hi everyone, and welcome back to PolyglotNook. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that, at first glance, might seem a little unusual for our community, but I promise you it holds some of the most profound truths about language learning that you'll ever encounter. We're going to talk about how foreign languages are taught in elite military institutions and special forces units. This isn't about apps or textbooks. It's about a world where language proficiency isn't a hobby, but a mission. Not long ago, I had the incredible opportunity to sit down and chat with a gentleman named Mike. Mike is a former military linguist, and he's a graduate of one of the most prestigious and demanding language schools in the world, the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. It's a place where they train people to speak languages you can't even imagine in an unbelievably short amount of time. As we talked, I was struck by the sheer intensity of his experience, and he was generous enough to share some of his insights with me. The very first thing I asked him was, "How do you do it? What's the secret?" Mike chuckled, and he said, "The secret is, it's not even about the language to begin with." He explained that the selection process is, in his opinion, the single most important part. It's an intense, multi-stage process designed to filter for a very specific kind of person. And he described his entry exam to me, and it sounded like something straight out of a science fiction movie. He told me he didn't need to know a single word of a real foreign language to take it. Instead, they gave him a completely made-up, artificial language. His entire task was to figure it out. They would play sounds I had never heard before, he explained, and I had to train myself to distinguish them. I had to spot new grammatical markers. For example, I'd hear a word and then a slightly different version of it, and I'd have to figure out that the prefix on the second word meant in the past. It was all about finding the patterns, identifying the logic, and figuring out the rules of a language that didn't actually exist. He went on to say that the exam wasn't a test of knowledge, it was a test of potential. It was a test to see if you had what he called the language learning muscle. They wanted to know if you had the innate ability to recognize new patterns, to memorize a list of words that were completely meaningless to you a moment ago, and to apply new rules on the fly. He said that if you could make sense of this fictional language, they knew you had the raw talent to make sense of any real one. And the higher your score, the more challenging the languages they would consider you for. Languages like Russian, which for them, is considered one of the hardest. This is such a profound insight for us. We spend so much time on apps, trying to memorize our first few words. But what Mike's story tells us is that before you even start, it's about your mindset. It's about approaching a new language with the curiosity of a detective, ready to find patterns and piece together a puzzle. It reminds us that our brain's capacity for this is far more important than the specific words we have already learned. So, what happens if you pass the test and get in? That's when the real work begins. I asked Mike about a typical day, and he closed his eyes for a moment, as if he was reliving it. Our day started at 5 in the morning, he said. After physical training and breakfast, the academics would begin. And they didn't stop. He said they were in the classroom from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. That's 8 hours right there. But it didn't end there. After class, we were expected to do another 2 to 3 hours of homework. So, we're talking about 10, maybe even 11 hours a day, 5 days a week, dedicated to a single language. There were no excuses. Mike broke down his day for me, and the schedule was incredibly structured. The mornings were for grammar and new vocabulary. He described sessions dedicated entirely to a specific, difficult concept, like mastering the use of grammatical cases in Russian. The afternoons were for listening and speaking drills. They would listen to news broadcasts or recorded dialogues, often at a normal native speaker speed, and then they'd have to repeat it back or discuss it. Then came the homework, which was just as demanding. He would have to learn dozens of new words and phrases every single day. He had to listen to hours of audio to train his ear. He had to read newspaper articles and short stories to build his reading comprehension. And for writing, he would keep a daily journal in his target language, or write essays on specific topics. One of the coolest parts, Mike told me, was the recording sessions. We would have to record ourselves speaking on a topic and then listen to it back. It was painful at first, he admitted, but it was also one of the fastest ways to improve our pronunciation and fluency. He stressed that it wasn't a magic method. It was simply the old, proven methods: listening, reading, speaking, and writing pushed to their absolute limit. The sheer volume of input and output was what made the difference. This story got me thinking about all those ads and promises we see online. Learn a language in 3 months. Become fluent in 2 weeks. Mike's journey puts those promises in stark perspective. He told me that even with that unbelievable intensity, a talented person studying Russian for an entire year might only reach a confident B2 level. Not a C2. Not perfect fluency. A really good, functional, B2 level. That's after an estimated 2,000 to 2,500 hours of total study. I know that might sound discouraging. We don't have 10 hours a day, and we might not have the talent of a military linguist. But here's the powerful takeaway, the lesson we can all learn. Instead of chasing a magical shortcut, we should focus on the truth. And the truth is that consistency and intensity are the keys. If you can only find 1 hour a day, that's fine. But make that 1 hour truly intensive. Put your phone away, close the other tabs, and dedicate yourself completely to the task at hand. Because as Mike's story proves, small, consistent efforts over a long period of time lead to real, measurable results. Now, Mike's story is about a formal, structured approach to language learning. But he also told me about another method he considered to be even more extreme. He called it the sink or swim method. This is how languages are taught in the French Foreign Legion. Imagine this scenario. You're a soldier from another country. Your teammates are from all over the world: Brazil, Germany, China, Mexico. And none of you speak the same language. Your mission is to learn French so that you can communicate, work, and survive together. From day one in the training camp, you are forbidden to speak your native language. Not a single word, ever. Not to your friends, not in your free time. Nothing. The only language you're allowed to use is French. I was so fascinated by this, I did some more digging and found a fascinating account from a former legionnaire named Mary. Mary told me her first few weeks were a complete blur of confusion. I understood nothing, she said. The commanders would shout orders, and I'd just watch what the others were doing and try to copy them. But she said there was a pattern. The actions and the commands were repeated day after day. Slowly, she started to recognize the sounds. At first, a command was just noise. Then it was noise I recognized. And eventually, it was noise that meant, stand up. Or get your gear. What's incredible is that for the first 3 or 4 months, there are no formal language classes. It's all pure immersion. The lessons are learned through action and consequence. If you didn't understand an order and you made a mistake, you were punished. Mary explained that this wasn't about cruelty, it was about creating a deep, visceral link between the language and survival. The punishments were meant to make you pay attention and force your brain to make sense of the language, because your survival depended on it. Mary also mentioned one of the most powerful tools they used: music. We sang songs, she told me. All the time. When we were marching, we would sing songs in French. The instructors made sure we were singing clearly and loudly, and if you weren't, you would get extra push-ups. This use of music, she explained, was a brilliant way to subconsciously embed the rhythm, pronunciation, and vocabulary of the language. It was a way to make the language a part of your body and your memory. And the result? Mary told me that by the end of the 3rd month, everyone was speaking in a broken, but truly fluent and understandable, French. Their grammar wasn't perfect, but they could communicate effectively in any situation that mattered. They had a kind of street-smart, practical fluency that came from necessity, not from a textbook. So, what can we, as everyday language learners, take from these two very different, very extreme stories? I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and have come up with 4 key lessons that I want to share with you. 1. The myth of objective difficulty. Mike's story taught us that a language is only hard relative to your starting point. For a native English speaker, Russian is a Category 3 language, taking an entire year of full-time study. But for a native Russian speaker, a Slavic language like Polish is much easier. Conversely, a language like German, which is a Germanic language like English, is considered easy for English speakers. What this tells us is that we shouldn't get discouraged if a language feels hard. It's not a reflection of your ability, it's just a reflection of the distance between your native language and the one you're learning. Instead of being intimidated, we should accept the challenge and adjust our expectations. Knowing this helps you manage your time and motivation. It's okay if it takes you longer to learn Arabic than it takes a German speaker to learn English. That's simply the reality of it. 2. The power of intentional, consistent effort. Both stories, despite their differences, highlight this same truth. Mike's 10-hour day wasn't magic. It was simply a massive amount of focused work. The soldiers in the Legion weren't performing a miracle, they were simply living the language, day in and day out. For us, this means that consistency is far more important than a miracle cure. It's better to study for 15 minutes every single day than to study for 3 hours once a week. Consistency builds momentum. It trains your brain to expect the language, to get into the rhythm of it. It's like going to the gym. You can't get strong by going once a month, no matter how hard you work that one day. But if you go every single day, you will get stronger. The same principle applies here. Find a realistic amount of time that you can commit to every single day, and stick with it. That is the real secret. 3. The importance of context and purpose. The soldiers didn't learn a language to get a good grade on an exam. They learned it for a very specific, and often very serious, purpose. Mike was learning Russian to be able to understand complex political and military information. Mary was learning French to be able to communicate with her team and follow commands. Their purpose gave their learning meaning and urgency. And for us, this is a huge insight. Instead of just learning random words from a list, we should try to learn with a purpose. Are you learning a language for travel? Then focus on travel-related vocabulary and phrases. Are you learning for work? Then focus on the words and phrases you need for your job. The more specific your purpose, the more motivated you'll be. The context gives you a reason to learn, and that reason is the most powerful motivator of all. 4. The value of immersion, even on a small scale. You might think that the Foreign Legions method is impossible to replicate. And in its full, extreme form, it is. But we can take the core idea and apply it to our own lives. The core idea is simple: immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. You can't move to another country or join the military, but you can create your own immersion environment. You can change the language on your phone. You can watch movies and TV shows in your target language. You can listen to podcasts. You can find language partners to talk to, even for just 15 minutes a day. This is where services like italki.com come in. They allow you to find native speakers and create your own small, personal immersion bubble. The soldiers had no choice but to be immersed, but we have a choice to create our own immersion. And that choice is incredibly powerful. So, my call to action for you today, my friends, is this. Stop looking for the easy way out. Stop comparing yourself to others. Instead, ask yourself, can I commit to a focused, intentional 30 minutes every single day? Or an hour? And if you can, make that promise to yourself. That little promise, that small act of consistency, can completely change your progress. Thank you so much for joining me today on PolyglotNook. I hope that these stories have given you a fresh perspective on your own language journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I wish you all the best on your language journey, and I'll see you next time.